Hello, my name is Coleen Storey, and I am the holistic care supervisor with Peace Health Hospice, and I'm also a licensed independent clinical social worker. And I oversee the hospice MSWs or social workers that work out in the field, as well as the bereavement center here. And so I'm excited to be here to do this presentation for y'all. The objectives today is really, I'm going to go over just to give you a general understanding of grief and loss. And then I'll drop down and do an overview of the uniqueness of grief and loss with the dementia factor in. And then we'll also go over some of the challenges in navigating the holidays with dementia. I'll provide you some caregiver tips, some holiday gift ideas, and even some self-care suggestions.
I'm going to interrupt 1 second, Colleen, just to
Hmm.
remind everybody that you can put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll answer them toward the end. And having said that, I'm Lynn Crawford with Hope Dementia Support, and we are thrilled to death to have Colleen here today. So
Oh,
there you
thank you, Lynn.
go.
All righty. So when I do a presentation on grief and loss, I like to start it out by defining what it is. We hear grief, we hear loss, and we automatically go to death, but which is actually a big loss. But defining grief is the normal and appropriate emotional response to, and I should have put a significant loss. So actually, grief equals emotions. That's what grief is our emotion, our feelings around the loss. Defining loss, loss is the state of no longer having something that was meaningful to you. It doesn't have to be meaningful to anybody else, but meaningful to you. And we can experience a variety of losses, not losses, over a lifetime. So there's like 44 different types of losses. So like death, loss of our home, maybe through divorce or loss of a job, but also there's the unseeable ones like our mental capacity, our loss of trust, or our loss of sense of control, or our loss of safety. So there are a variety of losses that an individual can go through. With that said, there's also experiences that that are across the board, whether we're living with dementia. There are particular ones that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes here, but grief is experienced in all facet of an individual's life. Really, emotionally, we have emotional responses when we've experienced a loss. So that might be the loss of helplessness or hopelessness, disbelief and shock. Anger is a very valid response. It's how we respond to that anger that can get us into trouble. But guilt and the feeling of being overwhelmed, anxiety, panic, extreme sadness, envy, worry, all of these emotional responses are really typical when somebody is grieving. We also go behaviorally. So uncontrollable bouts of crying, sometimes inappropriate laughing. I know I do that when I get real nervous, I'll laugh. Discussing our loss with family and friends over and over and over again as we're trying to process what's happened or what is happening. And the use of drugs and alcohol to self-medicate is fairly common when we're trying to process our grief and loss, which I'll talk more about that. Physically, individuals can experience constant fatigue increase or decrease in energy, appetite. We have general achiness, headaches, nausea, just feelings of being immobilized. And a lot of this comes from the idea that when we're going through that loss, we're looking in the past and going, how did we get here? Could something have been done to prevent this loss from occurring? And at the same time, we're trying to process now that this is happening or has happened, what does our future look like and what's that going to be? And so there's a lot of brain energy that's going out in the past and we're projecting out to the future that we literally don't have a lot left over to be processing. And so again, the cognitively inability to think about anything but the loss or what we're going through. Suicidal thoughts. There's a difference between suicidal thoughts and suicide ideation. Ideations when you have a plan and you have means to that plan. But we get a lot of people that come through the bereavement center and go, I'm suicide. I think I'm suicidal. I keep thinking about it. And I said, what do you think about? And they said, how much easier it would be if I didn't have to be here dealing with all of this. Yeah, that's common to want to go, you know what? It would be easier if we didn't have to sit here and go through all this emotional stuff for sure. Short-term memory loss, being indecisive, lack of concentration, lack of concern for ourselves, or lack of motivation. All of that plays in cognitively. And then we have socially, our loss of status in the community or that feeling of isolation. And especially if you're a caregiver, you're isolated from people that family or friends or that may feel uncomfortable around the situation, so they may not show up as much. You can't get out and join your friends as much because you have responsibilities. So you have that sense of isolation. And and then finally spiritually. And those are being perhaps angry at God. And I said, that's okay because God's got broad shoulders. But when I say God, I'm looking at a broader sense of what me brings meaning into your life. And so some people may question whether their faith or their belief system is working to support them. Some people can lean into that faith and get all the support that they need that sees them through. It's just sometimes there's just spiritually people question things when they're going through grief and why me and am I being punished for this? And then finally, I'm not going to go over all of this that's in here, but differences in how people grieve, especially when you're family, right? And there's two different types of grieving styles. There's the instrumental grieving, which are our thinkers. So they may grieve by doing something, mowing the lawn, lobbying for a Relay for Life team or a scholarship for their child who their senior who died in a car accident perhaps, and so they work in getting a scholarship going. They're action oriented people. And then at the other end of the spectrum is the intuitive. So they're all about the heart. They're all about feelings, wanting to talk about their feelings, sharing their feelings, being able to give themselves permission to cry. And so when you have an intuitive griever and an instrumental griever, sometimes they can clash. Like the intuitive may be going, you're not supporting me. You're not grieving. How can you not grieve this loss? And then on the other hand, the instrumental griever is going, you got to get a grip on yourself, right? You got to just pull up your big girl panties and get on with it. And so most men will fall into the instrumental grievers and most women intuitive, but there's plenty of women instrumental grievers and there's lots of male intuitive grievers. It's just that our society has given women, I think, more permission to process and talk about their grief. And when we're grieving, that's one thing that we really need to do. And then, we want to go to this blended part where it's a combination, a balance of both. But once people understand this, that there's two different styles, they can give each other a little bit more grace, going, oh, okay, I get what they're doing. Okay. So that's helpful. So dementia and the impact on individuals and families. So I wanted to go over just quickly the overview for individuals and caregivers living with dementia because the grief process is ongoing. So we can start the grieving process when we start noticing symptoms. And for the individuals living with it, they're starting to notice and question. And the family may be kind of wondering, they're kind of seeing some things. And then comes the diagnosis. Well, then it continues. The increasing the loss of the memory and the cognitive functioning for the individual that has the diagnosis. They're seeing a decrease in their memory, and now they've lost their driver's license. They can no longer go out alone. They can't be left alone. They need help with their personal care. There's a need for maybe outside assistance. And then the caregiver, because they can't go out alone and can't be left alone, they're in this too. And they're grieving their own personal losses of their free time of doing what they were doing because their role is changing now. They're not so much the child, perhaps, as they are now the caregiver taking care of a parent. It's hard work, as all of you know. My mother had dementia, Alzheimer's for 5 years. I know how difficult this is. I don't think there's any more difficult job in the world as being a full-time caregiver, even a part-time caregiver to a parent. There just isn't. So we have that need for respite, to get a break. And then we have incontinence starts happening. That's another, I mean, it's what's for the individual, right? Is how much dignity is that? Is losing all of that. And then perhaps comes the placement when you can no longer fully care for them at home. And now the individual starts changing. Maybe they get aggressive and they have embarrassing behaviors. Or perhaps they no longer recognize you. They don't know who you are. They can develop the connection with another resident and know maybe who they are and they have this relationship, but they don't know their relationship with you. That happened to me, and I felt really lost at that time. And then it's the loss of communication. They don't talk as much. And so you don't have that that connection. And then the loss of their mobility. It's very difficult for them to get around. They're in a wheelchair, perhaps they're in bed. Then the inability to swallow. And so the declining of health just continues up until the point of their death. And I think the average, it's what, 5 or 6 years from diagnosis to the end, to the death. And so every step of the way, It's a grieving process that's going on that isn't so, I think, acknowledged with friends and that, the understanding that we're constantly grieving losses and the individual is grieving losses. So some of the tips in that, I think, when we're going through those stages is, don't dismiss a person's worry. Don't say, "Oh, it'll be okay. Yes, it's all right." Just listen and show them that you care, that you're there for them, and do the best that you can to support them. Try to enjoy the moment and not spend too much time thinking about what the future may or may not hold. I've always been taught that if we're living with depression, it's because we're living in the past. And if we're living with a lot of anxiety and angst, it's because we're living too far in the future, because we really don't know what's going to happen. We're trying to guess and we're reacting to that. And then finally, a sense of humor may help if it feels right at the time. Um, my aunt also had Alzheimer's dementia, and she was at home in the um she was a little deeper into the beginning stages, and my cousin Wally worked, but they bought her a VCR so that she could watch her movies. Well, she kept calling him and going, "You need to come home. My movie won't work." And so he's trying to walk her through it. "No, you have to come home. It won't work. It won't work." And he was upset because he had to leave work again, and he got in the car and drove all the way out to the house and to find out that there was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich stuck in where the tape was. And he goes, I laughed. I laughed so hard and it made everything right. So it's like, yeah, we have to find the humor in when we can. So people with dementia often experience emotional changes in their emotional responses. So some may overreact to things, some may experience rapid mood changes or feel irritable. They may appear unusually distant or disinterested in things. And what you can do with that is look beyond their words and their behaviors. See if you can find the feeling that the person might be trying to express. And also, strong emotions like that may be caused by unmet needs. They're trying to work out what these, so if we try and figure out what the needs are, and we can try and meet them when possible. My sisters and I got very creative with my mom when she was still at home, trying to figure out where her behaviors were and how we can meet her. And a lot of it we could tell when she was fearful. And so that we knew what to do, to sit next to her and just kind of hold her hand and just be present, not tell her everything's going to be okay. Just be present and let her feel our human connection. And that would always um, bring her down and she would start feeling safe again. So the impact on confidence and self-esteem. So the individuals, dementia may cause individuals to feel insecure and lose confidence in themselves and their abilities. And you looked at all of those losses that I talked about, not being able to drive, don't have control of um, of their environment, and that um, they can't trust their own judgment. And so, yeah, and dementia can also have effect on their health or financial circumstances, employment status. The relationship with those around them may also have a negative impact on self-esteem. So my mother took great pride in the fact that she never applied for a job, not ever. People called her that knew her and then offered her jobs. So she took a lot of pride in that. And when she could no longer hold down a job per se, she would volunteer at the historical um, museum. And she was there, and people came in, and there was a lot of my family history in there that she could talk about. We had a still that my grandfather ran, in all kinds of things. And she would talk about the history of the area, and people loved her, and she was great until the decline went. She declined to the point where she could no longer do that. And so they took her out of the rotation. And when they did that, my mom didn't understand, and she would forget that they took her out of the rotation. So she would show up to work, and she would get mad that this other lady was in there because that was her position. And then they would end up having to call the cops and lock her out of the building when they saw her car, and she couldn't understand it. And it just broke our hearts because she wanted to be a member of society, and she couldn't understand why nobody was allowing it. And she started really declining after that. It had a big impact on her confidence. And so what we did was we lifted her up as much as possible. We came to her with all kinds of problems that she could fix for us. Um, we gave her a lot of praise and encouragement, and tried really hard not to criticize her in what she was doing. Um, we had to be creative in some of um, our comments, and that to help support her, to keep her positive. And we took her out a lot, and I took her to bingo every weekend, and she didn't know. She just would daub numbers. And that was great. She had fun, right? And that's what it was about. So challenges, I mean, if that's not enough challenges, let's throw in holidays. And when I came to Lynn, I really wanted to help people with the holidays because it's such a stressful time for individuals. So, tips for the caregiver to help a loved one with dementia during the holidays. First of all, be honest about what your loved one's capabilities are. It's really important. It's a If you can take the time to prepare family members that maybe hasn't seen your loved one for a while, and prepare them for the changes in personality and their actions, let them know to be patient with them, and don't force them to try and remember the past. Just be in the present moment with them. So that takes some of the stress off of going, what are they saying? What are they doing? Kind of prepare them. And then prepare the children as well. You might say some things like, Grandma's brain is working differently now, and sometimes she forgets things. And it's not because she's upset with us, it's just part of her illness. And just make sure they've got comfort, and comfort them, because they're going to see the difference in them, and it's going to be it's confusing enough for us, let alone for the children. So preparing activities that friends and families can do with someone with dementia. Give them a coloring a picture, just sitting down and coloring a picture, looking at old pictures. Even if they don't remember everybody who's in there, you can say who's in there, and, then let them reminisce about who that is in the picture. Maybe they're just going to make up a completely different story. My mom had a picture of me skydiving, and she was like, I did this too. It's like, you did. And we just let her go with it. And maybe they can sit and make a simple craft. Just do something for that they're participating. Singing a song. We all know how powerful music is. I've seen it where they barely are unable to talk, but boy, get somebody in there that can sing. They can sing those words. They can sing. And so that's a beautiful way. Another way I think that can help take off some of the stress is to create a quiet place where the person who has dementia can relax and have an activity that they can just enjoy quietly. Because if you can imagine, all of a sudden we're around all these people and it's a change in their environment as well, if you think about it. And it can be really overwhelming to them. So just having a room, a space where they can go, maybe you can plug in a movie or some music and have some coloring books and just a place where they can get away from the noise so that they don't become overstimulated. And then we see some of the behaviors, right? So, tips for the caregiver. So, some additional ones is keep your travel plans realistic, right? If you have to get on a plane, think it through. One of the things that we did when we went to a restaurant, and this was the smartest thing I ever did, was I created some business cards that that explained that my mother had Alzheimer's and that she didn't. Um, she would say things and maybe do things that aren't appropriate, but she would be mortified if she knew she was doing those things. So just kind of explaining the situation. And then I would give some to the waitress and ask her to distribute the cards to the tables and to the people around us. So when mom actually did do something, people understood. They knew what was going on. And I cannot tell you how much stress that took off of me because the embarrassment factor didn't play a role anymore because I knew that they knew that this was unique situation and that my mom would be mortified by her behavior and eating with her fingers and whatever she was doing. So I strongly recommend making cards like this so that you can take your loved one out and and let people know around you what's going on. People are full of grace and they understand, especially when you give them the story that they're not making up the story why your mother, your father, or spouse is behaving that way. So it's the best thing I read in a book to do was make those cards.
Can I interrupt 1 second?
Yes,
So, those of you that are members of Hope Dementia Support know that we have exactly that card that Coleen is talking about. And what it says is it says, my my companion has dementia. Please be patient. And we are happy to provide those for anybody that you want. And I have to tell you that anybody that has those and uses them will tell you exactly what Colleen has said.
it's
It
a
makes
game changer.
a world of difference. So thank you for mentioning that.
It's just a game changer. It's truly, and I think I read it in the Washington book, on dementia roadmap.
Uh-huh.
And that's where I picked it up. And let me tell you, I gave them to all my sisters, and we had them with us all times. And it was a game changer. It truly was.
We're happy to provide them for anybody that asks.
Great. So taking a trip down memory lane, break out a photo album or family scrapbooks. You can ask them who's in the picture and let them reminisce. You just want to be careful that you're not feeling like you're quizzing them. So in case they don't know who that is, we can go, oh my gosh, that looks like Aunt Bessie right there. Is that Aunt Bessie? And, just talk about what's going on in the picture. And it because they know the older memories. I mean, especially in the earlier stages, right? They can talk. It's also important to keep on a schedule. I think, especially if we're taking them out somewhere, people are coming over. Um, we want to try and keep it during the time of day that's best for them when they're at their best. And when that time is. You're a caregiver, you see it. And it's also important to keep their bedtime the same. So work around the holidays around kind of their schedule and when they're at their best. Like my mother, I could take anywhere between 9 o'clock and lunchtime, late afternoon to the evening. No, wasn't a good mix for her. Avoid clutter. So you want to be really careful, like when you're decorating, right? And you want to make sure that your holiday rugs, that throw rugs that you put out, and the electrical cords don't become tripping hazards, flashing, blinking lights. Sometimes we get those loud music decorations that Santa Claus will ring his bell and they sing some kind of song, and it can startle and really confuse them. And I had no idea, but when my mom was in a facility, they had this Santa Claus, and it was probably maybe a foot tall, maybe a little bit taller. And it was motion sensor, so when you walked by, it would sound off, and it was loud and it was obnoxious. And going down to my mom's room, and they were still decorating there when I was there. So I went down to my mom's room, and we decided we were going to go back down to the lobby area. And as we walked by, that poor Santa Claus got that motion, went off, and started ho ho hoing. But it was a really loud, creepy sound, and it had music, and it scared my mom. And then she just kicked it down the hallway. I mean, it went flying, and they were all like laughing, going, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't have that out." Like, probably not. I mean, it really startled her. So be careful of all of how much decoration and flashing lights and things like that. On a tree, I would put solid lights, things that are softer. So you want to just avoid all the other type of clutter that can actually, if they don't understand, like garland on a tree that looks like cookies or decorations that look like cookies, something like that, they may try and take those and eat them. So you just want to be cognizant of what you're decorating with at the time. And of course, it's always best to avoid alcohol. Um, it's oftentimes, alcohol, they will, the sugar from the alcohol and it impacts their sleep. But you can substitute it for non-alcoholic beverages for the alcoholic ones. And I had a friend that their mother was allowed to have a glass of wine. But that was it, one. Well, it's the holidays and she wanted a second glass of wine. So what they had was a wine bottle that everybody knew, and it was marked, and it was they had filled it with grape juice, sparkling grape juice. So what she did was she drank the rest of her alcohol in sparkling grape juice and didn't know the difference. So, and then seek understanding. And by that, again, I'm talking educating, educating the your family on what to expect as far as behaviors and how they can help out. So some of the gift ideas, holiday gift ideas. So for the early stages of the disease, post-it notes or an erasable whiteboard where they can write out their daily activities is a great gift to give somebody. And it's just a gift, right? You don't have to say so you can write down and remember what you're supposed to do, but there's benefit to that. Baskets or trays that can be labeled inside of a cabinet or drawer so they know what they're looking for and where it's at. Gift cards for um, ride sharing services or to a favorite activity like golf or movie, going to a restaurant. It just allows the individual with dementia to stay active, to stay busy, to be out. And then at the latter part of the early stages, I mean, maybe some GPS trackers, right? If they tend to get lost somewhere, bracelets, that or the watches that have the tracking devices on them. Middle to late stage, music playlist that includes their favorite artists and songs. What an awesome gift to give somebody, right? Their favorite music to listen to. That's just a wonderful gift. We made a couple of them for my mom because the music that they played at the facility that was they were at, the caregivers played their music, and it was nothing my mom wanted to listen to. So we made her some tapes so that she could listen to in her room. Comfortable, loose-fitting clothing that's easy to put on, to remove, wash, things like Velcro shoes, but comfortable, something that as long as they can dress themselves, give them those clothes that they can, and that's comfortable to wear. Framed photographs or a photo collage. And you can put little names, insert the names around of the people to identify who they are. When my mom first moved into the facility, she was angry to say the least, yeah, very angry, and she hated it. And we got a group of her family members and photographs, and we had them enlarged, we had them framed, and we took him down, and I took mom out to lunch. And then my sisters hung them up in her little area. And it seemed to really calm her down because she was with her family. Now, she knew she was the last of her family, but it gave her a lot of comfort just being surrounded by them. And they were childhood pictures, and she would know the stories. She would tell everybody the stories. And it just brought her so much comfort to be surrounded by her loved ones. Soothing gifts that can help with anxiety. So, the handheld massage ball or a soft blanket. And then I was thinking, the cats, the babies for them to hold or to pet, something that's soothing, a fidget blanket that you can get, something that they can fidget with. And sometimes just a light weight weighted blanket. The first weighted blanket I bought my mom, I thought, oh, she's going to love this. And she hated it. She kept taking it off the bed and shoving it underneath the bed. And I couldn't understand why. Then my sister got her a smaller lap one and she liked that. Well, not too long, about a year ago, I had it at my house and I thought I should put this on my bed at night. So I put it on and the thing weighed 25 or 30 pounds. I hated it too. I had no idea. No wonder she hated it. It was just way too heavy. So I say a lightweight weighted blanket. And then you can get things like adapted dining equipment, like no spill cups, the plate guards, silverware, those type of things that can give them greater independence when they're eating their meals. These are great gifts, ideas. And then for the caregiver themselves, so as we all know, as caregivers, the thing that we need the most is the gift of time where we can have a break. Even a short break every day can lower the stress level and avoid burnout. But for 5 years, I drove every single weekend up to my mom's, which is about 2.5 hours away. And then later in the facility, which was then 3 hours away. So for 5 years, I drove back and forth every weekend. And about every 2 weeks, I would take off and go in the middle of the week, like on a Wednesday, so I could see what was going on. I wanted to be unpredictable just so that I can make sure she was being cared for. And there were times that I would call my sisters and go, look, can you go up there this weekend? And they're like, no, we're busy. I was pretty much the sole caregiver. And 5 years, I mean, I would have given anything for one of them to go, you know what? Why don't you go and take a break and we'll cover mom this weekend? And I'm not saying that they didn't do it at all, but I sure could have used it a whole lot more than what I was getting. So, some great ideas for holiday gifts is coupons for cleaning the house, cooking a meal, mowing the lawn, shoveling the driveway, things that will give me or a caregiver a break that they don't have to be in the kitchen cooking right now. Gift cards and certificates for the restaurant or meal delivery. Again, I don't have to do that. Lawn services, things like that, where it just takes off the duty off the caregiver, gives them a little bit more downtime. Books. So you can buy them a book of their to-do list, their reading list, but then there's also caregiving books and books on maintaining their self-health, which I think is really important because oftentimes we don't take care of ourselves. And one of the things that I did to take care of myself was to read that Washington book on the roadmap to dementia. And out of that whole book, they had some great ideas, and I followed a few of them. But again, that's where that card came from, is by looking at in another direction. And then self-care items like moisturizers, bath bombs or soaks, foot cream, scrubs, soaps, just anything that's special that makes the caregiver feel beautiful, that makes them feel good. Because 5 years of driving back and forth, I'm telling you, I look pretty haggard. I, I was exhausted. So these are great ideas to give the caregiver anything that's going to give them a little bit of extra time to themselves, just to treat themselves with, uh, just to treat themselves with some respite, some quiet. Everybody needs that. So self-care. Self-care is provided for you by you. I'm going to read that again. Care that's provided for you by you. That is self-care. Setting boundaries as a caregiver. So first of all, give yourself permission to feel what you feel. Your feelings are legitimate. Accept them. If you're sad, if you're angry, just accept. If you're fearful, accept how you feel. They're almost, your feelings are like visitors. They come and they go. They drop in, let themselves be known. You can even label them. You can even give them a name. You can call them Gladys. Oh, angry Gladys. Okay, you're here today. But be gentle with yourself. Because we may have a day where we're tired, we're irritable and angry, and we become maybe a little snarky with people. Don't beat yourself up later and feel guilty about it. You can apologize and go, it was a bad day, but be gentle with yourself. It was a bad day. We all have bad days. And in fact, when your friend has a bad day, do you not understand that? I understand. It was just a bad day. No worries. So look at yourself and go, wow, that was a bad day yesterday. Well, today doesn't seem as bad as yesterday, so we'll just go from here. Just be gentle. Engage in some type of spiritual or religious activity, like spend some time in prayer or in meditation. One of the things that I learned to do is is meditate. And I remember my mentor telling me, I'm telling them that it's like, well, I didn't meditate today. I didn't have time to meditate. Oh my God, I had to work and then I got in the car and I drove. I didn't have time to meditate. And they looked at me so calmly and said, well, it's when you don't have time to meditate, it's when you really need to meditate. You don't have to meditate for an hour or a half an hour. Sometimes you just sit. And so, what I do today, what I started back then, and I do this today, I get up in the morning when I start my day, I pour a cup of coffee, I turn off all of the lights in the house, and I call it coffee with God. I just sit. I sit and drink my coffee. If I can see outside, I'll watch the birds, but now it's dark, right? But I just sit in the silence. Praying is spending time letting God know or what you need. It's you talking, but meditating is actually just listening. And in the silence, ideas and whispers come to you about what you can do or how you can handle a situation. Have you ever tried like putting something together and get so frustrated? It's like, oh my God, this isn't working. And you walk away from it. And then later you get in the shower and as the warm water's hitting you, you're relaxing. And then you go, "Oh, I know what I can do." It's again, you're in the silence. So just spend some time each morning, grab a cup of coffee or tea and just spend, even if it's just 5 minutes, just in silence. That's meditation. It sets your day. There are times that I'm running late and I don't do that, and my day shows to the degree that I will go, okay, I will stop, turn off the lights in my office, shut the door, and I will sit in silence for a short period of time and just listen and regroup. It makes a huge difference in a day. It really does. Do not be afraid to ask for help. And when help is offered, accept it. Learn to ask for what you need in a really straightforward manner. Don't hint around and hope that somebody offers, because if they don't know, they don't know. And then that can cause us to get angry or frustrated or feeling isolated and alone because nobody's seeing you. Nobody knows what you need. So we have to ask and say, I need a 2 hour break to go and get a manicure. Can you come over and sit with dad for just a little while? I do that. I really need this break. Ask for what you need. Friends and family that know, somebody will step up. And you can send it all out in one big email or text to a group of people going, this is what I need today. Can anybody help out? You don't have to be the superhero that does it all, because you really can't provide care if you're not caring for yourself. I think they say, it's hard to pour from an empty cup. So you need to take care of yourself, to fill yourself up, to be able to do the things that you need to do later. Acknowledge your limitations. Like I said, you don't have to do it all. You don't have to do it all. Know what your expectations are. And like around the holidays and that, it's like you don't have to cook the meal because for the whole family because you've done it for the last 10 years. Hand that over to somebody and go, hey, it's your turn. Have a restaurant cook the meal and have somebody pick it up. You may have family traditions that you do year after year, but in the moment when you're tired and the expectation, you don't have to. You don't have to do that. That's being kind to yourself, going, okay, I do not have the capacity to have the whole family over and make a meal for everybody. I can't do that this year. So somebody else is going to have to step up, please. So just do things differently this year than what you would normally do. And then next year, you may want to do it, repeat it, or change it up, or go back to the way that you did it before. But it's okay. It's okay to change it up so that you're not carrying around all the stress and anxiety. Plan ahead to avoid those uncomfortable feelings. Plan ahead, and you do that with those business cards, paying attention to the travel plans. If you have to travel, have an idea where you can stop for restroom breaks. And if you have to travel, educate the family or friends that you're going to how you can help your loved one by setting up a space where they can retreat to when it gets to be too much for them. Prepare them ahead of time for maybe some of the behaviors and that so that they understand. Again, all of those three things will take off a tremendous amount of angst and anxiety about, oh my God, what's going to happen? Allow yourself to laugh and to feel good. It's okay to have a good time. It's okay to have fun. It's okay. I know you're a caregiver, and sometimes caregiving is so serious. And you get into the routine of day after day after day doing caregiving stuff. And it's a routine. And actually, I tell myself, or I tell my friends, it was like I was in survival mode every day. I was in survival mode. I was getting done here at work what I needed to get done to go and drive up to mom's and check on them, do what needed to be done. It was just literally survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, there's not a whole lot of time for joy and laughter and having lots of fun, because you're worried about the next thing that's going to happen. But there are moments when you might be reminiscing and sharing things and you laugh and it feels good. Oh my gosh, grab onto that moment because it'll fade eventually and you'll be back in caregiver mode again. It's being gentle with yourself to experience joy and laughter. Surround yourself with the people and activities that you prefer, not what other people expect you to do. Do what feeds you. Surround yourself with the people who support you, that help you feel good, not someone that says, what you need to be doing, you need to do this. I don't think you ought to be doing that. Oh my gosh, we don't need the judgments. We're all doing the best that we can in any given moment. That's what going to a dementia support group is about, is learning how to do different things instead of having the neighbor over there shaking their head, tisk, tisk, tisk. Well, you shouldn't be doing that or allow them to do that. We don't need that kind of judgment because we're getting away from that. We're being gentle with ourselves and go, oh, you know what? That probably wasn't a good idea to give them, soup that was boiling on the stove or, a big glass, 32-ounce glass of orange juice. That probably wasn't the best. Lesson learned. Okay. It's okay. Just do what you need to do. And most of all, remember that feelings change. They change every 30 to like 45 seconds. We get a new feeling or a new thought. They just come and go, come and go. And one of the things that I've learned as a bereavement counselor is when an intense feeling comes up and it's very emotional and you don't feel like you want to deal with it. And so we basically just suck it up. Well, when we suck it up, that means we're taking that energy and we're just stuffing it in our body somewhere. So if you can take a moment and allow your body to go limp, literally sit down and let your body go limp as you can. It allows the energy from that feeling or emotion to pass through the body rather than get stuck in the body. That's why massage and acupuncture is so beneficial, especially the acupuncture, because it moves the energy through the body. Because when we hold on to all of that, it's like a pressure cooker and it's not healthy for us. I mean, we get sick to our stomach, all those feelings that I talked about, where the physical responses of headaches and feeling sick and irritable and all of that is because we're holding on to so much. It's true as caregivers in this situation, we are dealing with a lot. But tell yourself, I am dealing with all of this. I don't have to hold on to it. Allow yourself to let go what you can let go. And no kidding, you're really angry or you just want to cry. And crying after we've had what I call a snot ball cry, the first thing we want to do is like take a nap because our bodies are relaxed because we just dispelled a whole lot of energy, a whole lot of energy. So allowing your body to go limp allows that energy to move through the body. And that's what you want. So new ways to celebrate the holidays. So again, allow a family member or a restaurant to be responsible for the dinner. You don't have to do it. I don't care if you've done it for years. Allow somebody else to do it. You don't have to be superhero and do it all. If you can, maybe get away for a day or two just so that you can recharge yourself and just have some quiet reflection. And if you can't, you can have that quiet reflection every morning with coffee with God. I'm telling you, it works really nice to set today. Shop from catalogs or the internet. If the noise of holiday shoppers and all that it gets too tense, allow your loved one maybe to pick some things out on the internet. You can shop from a catalog. You don't have to go get involved in the hustle and the bustle if it's too intense for you. Reduce your mailing list. Send holiday greetings to a select few people. Or again, you can send it out through an email. But to sit down and write out all these cards while you were trying to caregive and take care of them, and we're trying to do this, and you're writing out the card and is you're just irritated. Well, what good is that? Have a few people and let them know, write up one letter and let somebody else give a family member the list of the names and the addresses and send the letter, have them address it and do that. Because when our loved one is busy doing something, watching a TV, or maybe they're taking a nap, instead of doing these cards, we can just take that moment to do something that we want to do for ourselves. If taking your loved one out to like a church service, holiday service, and it's difficult and it's hard because you're worried about how they're going to respond, and that you can always do it online. That was the one thing that I learned in COVID. I saw all kinds of religious or Christmas celebrations from all over the world, the cathedrals around the world. It was amazing. And they were live and they still continue to feed it out live. If you've had a loved one who has is deceased, you can still buy them that perfect gift, but just donate it to a center or a homeless shelter, you know, in their honor. Keep that alive, keep their spirit alive. And even your loved one here that's alive, take that time and go, these are the things that they really enjoy doing. And I still want to be able to give them these type of gifts because I know that that's what they would have enjoyed. But you can take that and donate it and still give it to somebody. It's okay to do that, to have that to feel that need to want to shop for them. They're sensible things, but the other things. And then it benefits someone else. And then your heart's full too. Christmas cookies, things like that, doing a lot of baking. You can scale back on all of that. And if your loved one loved to bake or help, let them help. Maybe they can decorate some of the Christmas cookies, or they can place the Christmas cookies in a bag or in the tin. Allow them to participate in the way that they can. And so that they can also maybe enjoy and reminisce about holidays in the past, and talk about that and share those moments with them. And if bringing in a Christmas tree, it just is overwhelming at the thought of getting a tree, trying to decorate it in a way that's going to be safe for your loved one, but it's going to take all this time. You know, you can just get a centerpiece of evergreens that you can just put in the center of your table. It can still be very meaningful. It can still have the get one of the wreaths that they sell and put that in the center of your table. You get the smell, and it still has meaning without having to go out and find a tree, find someone to watch the loved one, or get them in the car, get them out there, unload the tree, get out all the decoration. Sometimes it can just be overwhelming. And the holidays is really a time to be gentle and kind. Do what you can do. If you're visiting, let the families know ahead of time what they can expect if you're taking your loved one out. If you used to drive around and look at the lights, take them for a drive. Go and look at the lights. My mom loved that. We drove all over the place with her and to look at the lights. And she was close to the beach, and the beach was her favorite place. And so every Saturday when I would go up, we would go have lunch, and I would drive her down to the beach so she could just listen to the water. She was having her quiet reflection and coffee with God, sitting there on the beach. In fact, the best gift I ever received was when I had mom sitting at the beach. And we were sitting there, and she had her eyes closed. She was listening to the waves. And all of a sudden, she looked at me and she goes, I know that you're doing this all by yourself, that your sisters aren't helping you. And I want you to know you're doing a really good job. And she went on to talk to me for like a half hour in this moment of utter clarity that blew my mind. And it was beautiful. And I swear that was my reward, my gift for taking care of her for those 5 years that I feel sad that my sisters missed out on. It was a beautiful moment. And so just spending time where places where they'd like to go, even though my mom couldn't walk the beach, we could go down and roll down the window. We could drive around and look at Christmas lights. We could drive in where they're caroling and roll down the window and let them listen to the caroling. We just have to be creative and again, make sure you stay within their schedule. Take them out on the times that's best for them so that they can get the most joy that they can, which allows you to get the joy and the gifts of the season and spending that time with your loved one. So I gave us a half an hour or so, 20 minutes, I guess, to answer any questions. So do we have any questions, Lynn?
It would help if I would turn my audio on.
Oh, that would help.
I was talking to you.
Oh, okay.
So, comments from the chat. So very early on, Teresa says that you have been right on target with what you've said so far. And and a comment about the Alzheimer's subtype with the average length of the experience being between 8 and 10 years.
8 and 10. Okay.
Uh, And a comment from Susan that says, I have made my own card for my husband, and it has saved me in so many situations, including at Home Depot, where they only want to talk to the man. Boy, I get that.
Yeah. I'm telling you, those cards they're worth their weight in gold and then some.
And
It's a
I have,
game changer.
yep, I have a request for some cards, and anybody that would like some, please contact us, and we'll be happy to provide them. And then we have, you were talking about alcohol and
Uh-huh.
the lady that got her juice instead of wine.
Uh-huh.
Michelle says that she purchased Stella beer, which is non-alcoholic, and
Uh-huh.
later referred to it as beer. And her husband was very satisfied. Since then, she could hand him a cold beer at his request.
Uh-huh.
And the experience is, I've heard, is that Stella smells just like beer when you open it. And yeah. And then there's a comment that there are so many mocktails available now, and that if you speak
Oh,
to a bartender ahead of time,
yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
then you can say, I'll have his usual, and then that works. So, uh,
Yeah. And that's another thing you can write on a card and give it to them. If I'm
yes,
ordering an M margarita, that means a mock margarita.
exactly. And then we have a comment that says she had found journaling as something that was very helpful to her.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you for bringing that up because journaling helps get that emotion that's stuck inside outside. And prompts can be the thing that's most difficult about today was. And you can write one long sentence with no punctuation and every word misspelled. It doesn't matter because you're not turning it in for an assignment. And if you're, like, well, I don't know what I'm going to say or what I should say, you will write until you're done, till the words run out, and you will feel so much better afterwards.
Yeah.
And another great thing to do that I've started doing with some of my clients is they'll tell me I'm just so full of anxiety, and I'll say, well, what is anxiety? What does that mean? What is that? And they're like, I don't know. It's just anxiety. And so we started helping people. Do I have that here? Oh no, I took it home. An art journal. So we go through, I have people go through like old calendars and magazine pictures and tear out pictures of things this is that represent their anger. And then they make a collage. And an example of this is years ago, I suffered from migraine headaches, and a girlfriend and I were in Seattle visiting a friend, and they had a exhibit from artists about migraine headaches. So after we got done visiting, we went down and we were walking through the exhibit. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Karen, here's my picture, or here's my migraine. And the artist had painted this picture of a woman's face, kind of a side angle a little bit, where it showed like this little gremlin thing behind her, and he had taken a vacuum cleaner hose and shoved it up the back of her neck and was sucking her eyeballs out through the back of her head. And I'm like, oh my God, that's my migraine. It's exactly how it feels. I could not have expressed it any better. And then later she's like, found mine, and went over and looked at it, and it was a man, and on that was just sobbing, and on top of his head was a construction worker with a jackhammer. She goes, this is my headache. And so by taking the anger or the anxiety and how it feels, the frustration, what does frustration look like to you? And you get pictures out of a magazine and you create a collage, and then all of a sudden you have the words. You have the visual and you have the words. Because in order to create it, you have to identify it and understand it, process it. So, yes, journaling or art journaling is brilliant, brilliant way of processing and getting things out of you.
So I have a comment here for you that you have left out the male caregiver.
Yes.
So
Through the whole thing.
maybe. So what have you to say?
Oh, well, first I'll say my apologies if I just went from like my experience, but with a male, oh my gosh, I think sometimes taking care of a wife and not being validated is difficult, or their skills are often questioned. Can they do that? Should they be doing that? And so I can, there's a lot of angst and that around that. But the holidays are still going to be, you're still facing what the holidays may look like, and you're going to question, do I take my spouse out? How can I best support her through all of this hustle and bustle? Do I just protect her and maybe not engage in it as much? I don't. I think the expert on talking about the male caregiver, I'd like to hear from the male. He's the expert on that.
Good point. Good point.
I mean, I can only guess, but I'm I'm going to do it through my eyes, my perspective as a woman. I would like to know more from the male's perspective on what I talked about tonight.
Well, I have several men in my groups, and I will give them the assignment of watching the YouTube video and then giving me their perspectives, and I will give them to you as
I
my
would
as
love that.
my Christmas present to you.
Yes, please. And,
Okay.
my apologies. I should have stopped and went, okay, well, but now from a male perspective, let's look into that.
Well, we learn something from everything we do. So
Right? And I love it.
no. From Stephanie, it says, thank you, good information and really creative ideas. And from Carol, she says, it's a wonderful presentation. So many great ideas. Love this so much. Teresa says, thank you so much. I'm very interested in the cards.
Yeah.
And then let's see.
You know what? I could stop sharing this and look at y'all.
Madeline says, my concern around the holidays is my anxiety about bringing mom into my home. She lived with us for a year and a half, or a year and a half ago, and said my dad built the house and my husband is not getting it. She never asks about coming to my house at all. I'm always anxious about bringing her here and seeing my mother-in-law, who she can be difficult with. How can I prepare for this? Has anyone else had these experiences?
Okay, let me take a second to process that. Can you bring her to your house at a different time? Can you have two Christmases? I guess is what I'm saying, right? So there's not that conflict between mother-in-law and her. I don't know how far along is your mother?
So that would be, let me see if I can. So Madeline, if you like, I can unmute you and you can respond. I just have to find you in the list.
So I'm guessing she's in a facility. Can you go there?
Well, Madeline, I've allowed you to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, my mother lives in an assisted living facility not too far from my home, but
Mm-hmm.
my two sons are coming home, her only two grandsons. I'm an only child. Um, and it's really important that she sees them and also my mother-in-law sees them. But what I was typing in was that my dad did not build my house. My mother confabulates a lot of
Yeah.
things, right?
Uh-huh.
The gaps of things she doesn't understand. So it's just I'm always just so anxious. And why do you think she never asked to come to my house ever? Because she'll talk about my cat, and I'll say, "Oh, I had some errands to do." You know, I see her almost every day, but it's just so odd that she never says, "How come you never have me over?" Or "I'd love to come over to your house for dinner." Or, but I don't feel comfortable having her here. So the holidays bring a whole nother level of anxiety for me because I don't know how she's going to act.
So maybe I mean, she can talk about the cats and that maybe she feels safer where she's at.
Yeah.
And can you and your sons go over to her
Oh,
for
definitely.
a couple of hours and do, you know, Christmas kind of exchange type of thing, or have a lunch or dinner and do it there?
Well, I think she's with it enough that she'd know we're having Christmas here. I don't want to exclude her. I want to include her in things. My husband's always like, "Oh, just relax, it'll be fine." But I'm like, you don't feel the same anxiety that I do. It's not your
Mm-hmm.
mother, so it's different.
Have you asked your mother if she wanted to come?
Sure, she's planning on it.
Oh, she is planning on it.
Hmm.
Okay. Oh,
But I don't know. It's just uncomfortable.
talk with your sons,
Hmm.
and maybe they can take turns kind of tag teaming her and talking with her and visiting with her and getting and your husband too, and
Yeah,
just spending some, like one-on-one time,
yeah,
and maybe having some of those activities that I said, like going through photo albums,
yeah.
things
I
like
wrote those
that,
down. Those
that
are great
she will,
ideas.
yeah, that she will enjoy.
Hmm.
Maybe turning on an old Christmas movie,
Okay.
like A Wonderful Life, something like that, the things like that that she can reminisce about.
Hmm.
I mean, that's been A Wonderful Life with some of the others been around. The Bishop's Wife with Cary Grant, um, some of the older movies
Yeah, yeah.
and
That's a good
that,
idea.
and yeah, and have some activities, maybe make some, have some chores,
Yeah,
right, that she could do. Something that's simple, whether it's setting the table or fold folding napkins. Just give her a bunch of napkins to fold.
yeah. Something that she feels important and useful and occupies
Yes,
time.
exactly.
Hmm.
Have some cookies there that are unfrosted, and you can one of the sons can like maybe frost them and let her put sprinkles and decorate.
Hmm. Yeah.
But a way that we can incorporate her in a way that, excuse me, that she's feeling useful.
I think that's key. Thank you. That should help.
Yeah, good.
Appreciate that.
You bet.
Thank you, ma'am. Um, Couple more. You're almost done. What about grief after a loved one dies and all you've been is the caregiver? Your world has shrunk. What now?
Yeah.
Ideas for
It's,
the holidays?
I'm sorry.
So, do you have ideas for the holidays for this person who is actively grieving
So,
and has lost their identity?
right. So, do you have a religious faith that you can attend around the holidays? Um, it's really hard because you're right, your world does shrink. Um, a few years ago, I had an individual who had been coming to my support group, and without a doubt, I knew she had lost like 6 family members. It was unreal. And I put her in contact with a lady at the mall with the giving tree. And and I asked her as a favor to me, which is I'm not even sure is ethical other than the fact that I knew she was contemplating suicide. I had no doubt. And I had to find somewhere for her to be. And she finally agreed that she would go help out a day at the giving tree because I needed help at the mall. And so she went, and then she stayed the whole time and did volunteer she went every day with the giving tree because it gave her a purpose, something to do. So if there's a place where you can volunteer to um, help serve a meal, something like that to get you out. Um, I'll be truthful, when my fiance died, the first that first Christmas, I spent the whole entire thing at a movie theater because I didn't want to be alone, but I didn't want to be around anybody. And so I literally went to the movie theater at 10, and then 12:05, 5 minutes after midnight, when I looked at my watch, it was like, oh, Christmas is over. Okay, I can go home now. It was such a game changer. But any friends that you have had that you've lost contact with, you might want to give them a call, reach out. Hopefully you're going to this a support group, whether it's through Hope Dementia or we have multiple support groups here as well, where people can connect. I know oh man, the holidays are so difficult when we've had that isolation of and not being out there. So just trying to reconnect, um, even classmates, you know, through Facebook, things like that, you can connect and Zoom calls. Friends that don't live here, maybe make a Zoom call and connect with them over Zoom. And I mean, you can decorate cookies or whatever and with somebody else on over the Zoom. Is there a neighbor that needs assistance that or they're an elderly couple, an elderly person who's alone, that you don't have to be alone and you can make their day too.
So, additional to this same question is how do you talk to family uh, wording ideas about how the family can't be the same as previous years, or how the holiday won't be and can't be the same
Because of the death or
because of the loss. Because of the loss.
because of the loss.
Yeah.
So, you know, I teach people to be straight up and go, okay, look, I'm grieving here, and there's nothing you can say or do can fix it. I'm not, I don't have the mental energy, the physical energy to go and be the person that's in charge. So if one of you want to do that, but just don't put any expectations on me on how you want me to behave or to act. I mean,
And so the next little piece of that is, what if the caregiver is really angry and down about it all? Thoughts for processing.
do a lot of journaling. First of all, you're going to write down, I'm really angry the way this went down because, and I don't know all the things that you're angry at, but if you're angry at them, you know, Sally, I'm angry at you because blah, 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 blah. And then you can take out a piece of paper and you can go write a forgiveness letter. A forgiveness is it's an action step. You don't have to feel it, but when you say it, the feeling comes behind it, right? And when we're really angry, it hurts us. It's like we step into a jail cell ourselves and we're in jail, and the people that we're mad at are out there doing their thing and whatever, and they don't even know or care that we're angry. Because they're it's because they've hurt our feelings. It's not about them, it's about us and our perception. I mean, I could talk another 3 hours on this topic,
Yeah.
but just to say, write a letter of forgiveness, why and how their actions impacted the way that you feel, because that's what this is all about. It's about the way that you feel. And once you write all that out, good God, you're not going to read it to a family member, you're going to burn it, because it's the same thing as letting your body go limp and letting that energy pass through your body, or journaling. You are writing a forgiveness letter and then you're going to burn it, because this is about you and your own feelings and emotions. It's really not about them. It's just that their action triggered you to feel certain way. So when you say, I forgive you, that means that I didn't do this. You did the action. So I'm not going to carry the weight of this around me anymore. I'm going to just kind of give it back to you and let you deal with what you did, but I'm not going to carry it around. I'm not going to keep myself in jail by being so angry that I don't want to talk to anybody again, because now I'm miserable because I'm not around family. You don't have to self-punish yourself. You didn't do anything. They may have done something, but you're going to write about how it impacted you, and then you're going to burn it
That
and
was
forgive them.
that was awesome. What a wonderful way to end a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. So everybody, I have to let you know about Coleen. Oh, here's one more. Thank you, Coleen, for sharing your wisdom today. So many great insights, and thanks to us for what we do to support people. That's very nice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My
Uh,
hat's off to all of you. I've been there. I know.
well, I have to let everybody know that I knew you during those 5 years. It was
Yeah.
amazing that you survived them. Um, Something that I don't know that everybody knows is that Hope Bereavement, which was around before Hope Dementia was, so we'll accept the same name, uh, provides massage therapy at no cost to Hope participants
Thank you.
because of Coleen Storey, because she knew how much she needed it. So thank you for that. And the other thing I wanted everyone to know that our next education is not education at all, but it is Jingling for Hope, which this, I believe, is our 5th year that we have done this, where it is strictly a holiday party. It's at Bridgeview Resource Center. It is on the 12th, and it is from 1 to
Uh-oh. We lost you. Lynn, we lost you. I know you said December 12th, 1 o'clock.
This is Julie, and I believe it's 1 to 4, and
One
it
to
will be
four.
led by
Thank
one
you.
to four. Yeah, it'll be led by a music therapist and Joey Yorchuk, and we'll have treats and lots of music to share.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah. Well, I hope everybody has a good rest of the week. Stay dry, avoid the wind. And we'll send out the link for this webinar after we have that on YouTube. So thank you again, Coleen. This has been amazing.
And Julie, feel free to even send out a copy of the slide presentation if anybody wants it.
Okay, thank you.
I mean,
We
there's
will
some
include that.
information there that I think people can really, glean information because it was a lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot, and it was really good. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
All
All right.
right.
Take
Thank you,
care.
everybody. Take care.
Bye, everybody.